let's get this thing kicked off today. What we wanted to kind of cover today is setting up 2024 and how we go about the approach that we go about doing that at Padley. We believe it's very important because you got to have a destination, right? If you don't know where you're going, how can you build the roadmap to get there? And so I'm going to share. If you'll mute yourself there, Andre. I'm going to share a couple tools that we use in order to do that. And some of our tools are a lot more complicated, but this is like the foundation and where we started. And then we can, as the complexity in your business get further and further along, we can kind of, show you guys some of the forecasting models that we have, but they're very native to our business. And so this is the most universal tools that we have in order to forecast and plan for the future. So I'm curious, has anybody set out their 2024 revenue targets on the call yet? What you're going to try to accomplish in 2024 from a revenue perspective? Couple people? Okay, good. So, whether you have or you haven't, right, that's very important that we set that revenue target. And we have to begin to differentiate where we want to go versus where we are today. And there's a lot that gets baked into that when you're trying to figure out how you're going to get there, right? There's marketing considerations, there's staffing considerations, there's current conversion considerations that must be made inside of your organization, because you're not going to wake up. Like, I think our goal for 2024 is like just shy of 9 million, right? We're going to surpass 5.5 million this year. Like, we're not just going to magically do $4 million more in revenue just because we say we can, right? I've been there. You want to talk about driving down the road 90 miles an hour trying to change a flat tire. If you want to try to do that every day, expect to do more revenue and with no planning and everything staying the same, right? We're all entrepreneurs. We all know that we can double our business. We all are going to go out and just, set the world on fire to do that. But what we found is with some strategic planning and then backing that with a solid set of core values, casting that mission, that vision, and that purpose, you're able to get more buy-in from the team members, but you also have a plan of how you're going to get there. Hey, if I got a goal of, say $10 million this year, I'm not going to get it. All quarters are not equal, right? I'm not going to do, a third, or a fourth, and a fourth. Q1 is probably going to be a little bit lighter. Q2 is going to ramp up. Q3 is going to bang off. And then Q4 is going to kind of die down a little bit, historically speaking, in most spaces in real estate. And so, but you've got to start planning that, right? We always like to say, and I'm going to go ahead and share this now. So we start this, the foundation of this is kind of the Vision Traction Organizer. Now, this comes from EOS. We actually run Scaling Up, which is a modified, more complicated version of this, but this is just a basic tool. You can find this in the drive as well as the other resources that I'm going to share with you today. But this outlines our core values, our core focus, our 5-year target, our 3-year target, and then we get down into the marketing strategy, which is our 3 uniques and how we attract customers. And then what we're going to do as far as year one, and a roadmap of exactly how we're going to get there. Because once we have that roadmap, we can then calculate for the workforce planning, the marketing planning, and then the facilitation and backup from an operations perspective. So we start with core values. I hope everybody on this, I'm not going to dig too deep into this. I hope that everybody has core values and they're leveraging them to make decisions inside their business, a purpose and a mission. I don't want to get too deep into this today, but this is critically important. If you're going to attract high caliber people, really A-class people, they want to know that they're working for a good purpose, a good mission, and that you have an aligned vision. And the way that we bring that into conversations every single day, whether it's disciplinary actions or, recognition for a performance well done, we always tie it back to the mission, the purpose, and the vision. It's kind of the cornerstone of our company and why we're able to attract, because you have to think about it. By and large, wholesaling is a very shady industry, right? How do you differentiate yourself from the shade trees? And you do that through a mission, a purpose, a vision, and a rock solid set of core values that you abide by and live by every single day. So when the people do find themselves inside of your company, operating in a space that is, otherwise known as pretty shady, they can operate with a sense of purpose and a sense of pride that we are going after and attacking a good jam up mission that they can be proud of. You know, one thing that I tell people is you're 80 years old and you're sitting on your front porch drinking a glass of sweet tea and your grandson or granddaughter comes up and says, "Hey, Papa, what did you do for a living?" You're proud to tell them what they did for a living. And if the employees inside and the team members inside of your organization are not proud, they're not going to stay. They're going to jump ship. And so we have to make sure that we are creating that type of environment. So,
and Ren, I'd like to speak to that real quick and to give you guys like an example of what he's talking about. You know, think of Wolf on Wall Street, those type of vibes, right? That's not what we want as a culture. And I see some of our competitors in our space have that similar vibe, and they are not going to be able to outlast us because they're all about money. They're all about, you know, greed. They're all about doing shady things. And those people, you know, they're going to have issues within their company because their employees don't have those core values. And then also they're not going to feel like they have a purpose other than money. And, you know, that's why, you know, when setting this up, I believe like our competition that runs their business that way, there's no way they're going to be able to compete with us because we have people that are truly after a purpose and truly feel fulfilled, and we get good people who want to work for us, not just people who are money motivated. We want that, but we also want people that are good humans, people that have integrity, and people that, you know, want to be here long term and feel like they're actually serving a true mission.
Yep. Well said, Clint. Money is an empty vessel, right? We have to fulfill it with purpose. You have to fulfill it with purpose. So then we back down, or we look out to our 5-year targets. So this is Padley's 5-year target is $30 million in revenue. So 5 years out, this is our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal. But it's important to look that far out because that is where we're going. In 5 years, we have set out and said that, and I think that date needs to be updated. We're going to do 30 million in revenue. We're going to net 12 million. Ren, Clinton, Tyler, the 3 partners of the business, will no longer be involved in the operations, and there'll be a fully built out CEO and COO running the operations. Does anybody on the call have those same aspirations? I'm sure you do, right? I would hope you do. Maybe you like staying in the nitty gritty and slinging deals, and that's fine as well. You would just construct this a little bit differently. But now that we know, hey, we got 5 years to bring this to fruition, what is the work that we have to start doing to get there? So then we pivot to the year 3 mark and we say, by 3 years out, we're going to do 20 million, 8 million in profit. And then we have to realize the measurable and what that takes to happen in order to achieve those forecasting models. We're going to have to close 800 deals, 25K in revenue will be in 2 markets, 14 home buying specialists, 9 ISDs, right? So from there, I'm not going to go into the marketing strategy either. We look at the 1-year plan. By the end of 2024, we will have hit $8.9 million, just shy of 3 million net, 356 closed deals, 25K in profit, 2 markets, 8 in Atlanta, 3 in Mobile, and 6 ISDs total, right? And so we have a very clear vision of what we're going to accomplish in the next year and how we now, but what we don't know is what is the work that we have to do on the business to arrive at there. And one thing that's very important is as you go out, and if you're following the EOS or the scaling up model, you're going to set rocks, commitments, priorities, whatever you want to call them, annual commitment plans that, hey, if I accomplish this year, it's going to put me in a better position to achieve this 3-year target. Right. And so I think one of our biggest ones right now, 2 company initiatives, or I think one of the biggest company initiatives is to surpass 65% contract to close. We currently hover around 50%. There's a lot of things that we're doing internally that are going to make up the work throughout the course of this year that is going to get us to 65% contract to close, because we know when that is attained, our model, our operation is exponentially more profitable. We have a higher ROAS. We have a shorter conversion rate, and our employees get paid at about a 25% higher clip than they're currently getting paid now, allowing them to make more money so that they're more bought in, so that they work harder, stay longer, and they're more fulfilled. So that's one of those big initiatives. We're not going to be able to capture that 15% contract to close by doing the same thing that we're doing now. So from a strategy perspective, one thing that we've agreed upon as an executive team is we're going from a virtual model to a 100% in-person model over the course of a year. There is a lot of transition that has to happen in order to pull that off in order to keep the people that we have, in order to maintain the culture, and navigate the choppy waters that come from moving from one basic business model and the way the operations are ran into another. But we know that that's a big mountain that we have to climb over the next 12 months. But we believe from a strategic alignment standpoint as an executive team that if and when we're able to accomplish that, it gets us to a 65% contract to close rate, which makes our business more stable and more profitable.
And for those that are new on the call, when you look at this list of performing HBS and performing ISD, HBS for us is our acquisition team. That's the home buying specialist. And ISD is our dispo team. That's our investment sales department. And when we say performing, we're also meaning they're actually hitting their performance standards. They're hitting their revenue numbers. They're hitting their closed deals. So it's not just we have to have that many reps. We have to have that many reps that are actually in performance status.
Sure, which means we may carry up to 50% more than that actual number. And so, we have these measurables in place, right? The 356 closed deals, our average profit per deal at 25K. And then that should make up that 8.9 million. But then you have to take into, we do not have the staffing in place right now in order to achieve those numbers. So we know that there's some workforce planning that has to be baked in here. We have to get, more home buying specialists, more ISDs. But when we end the year, we should have 8 performing in Atlanta, 3 performing in Mobile, and 6 performing ISDs throughout the company. They're kind of meshed between markets. From there.
And quickly going off that, it's of our belief that the number of performing acquisition reps you have is like one of the biggest levers you can have in your company. So like when you're setting your revenue goals and thinking you're going to go from 1 million to 3 million, you're probably going to need, if you have one acquisition rep doing 1 million, you're probably going to need 2 more to get there, 2 more in performing status. So like that is like in our business, there's a few main levers, and it's really average profit per deal. And the amount of performing acquisition reps you have, those can be the biggest levers for a wholesale and flipping business.
100%. So if we understand that these are our goals, we have to say, what are our goals for the year? What are our commitments? They can be called commitments, whatever it is. And then in order to accomplish this, we have to micro down into each division: marketing, lead management, home buying special, acquisition, dispositions, title, closing coordination, and saying, hey, if I'm going to do 356 closed deals in the year, that's 356 divided by 12. I need a minimum. I need 29, 30 closings a month. Do I currently have the staff to do that? Is my title division staffed appropriately or with the capacity to handle 30 closings in a year? Yes or no? If no, I have to figure out, okay, what is the work that we must do on the business? Maybe it's we have to place an executive director over that division. Maybe we need 2 more closing coordinators. Maybe we need to own the closing and have a preferred lenders list. Maybe we need to start a title company. I don't know what it is and how it looks uniquely to your business. But if the answer is no, you do not have the capacity to do that today, you have to say by the end of the year, what actions do I need to take in order to get the capacity to be able to perform to this? Because all while remembering that the following year, I have to double that almost, or about 70% more, right? And close 800. And so the work I'm doing this year in 2024 are going to set me up to accomplish what I need to accomplish in 2025. And so there's a lot of future planning that must take place, because I know there's nobody on this call that doesn't want to make more money, that doesn't want to grow their business, that doesn't want to have predictable revenue systems in place. But if we don't plan for the future and create strategy, then we're going to get to the end of 2024. We're going to do the exact same. Maybe we do a little bit more because there was a market tailwind kicked up, but you're leaving it up to the luck of the market. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't believe in luck. I believe in hard work, strategy, and execution. I think we froze up there.
Any questions, concerns, comments so far going into this?
I have a question. Hey, I'm Sean. I'm new. This is my first call. So on your ratio of your home buying specialist and your dispo guys, is that typically you see it's basically to hit that level of success, you're at maybe a 2 to 1? from a staffing standpoint?
So I personally think that it's very dependent on your business model, what your contract to close rate is, like there's so many factors that go into that. I think we're at more of like a 1.5 to 1 ratio currently. I think we have 11 acquisitions and 6 dispos. So it's maybe 2 to 1, I guess. But yeah, typically it's a 2 to 1 ratio. For instance, when we sustain the Mobile market, we'll have what we're looking for is 3 acquisition reps performing and 2 disposition reps performing there. So you just got to check inventory levels for your dispo. You don't want them to be overfed where they have too many deals to sell, and you don't want them to have nothing to sell. So you just got to monitor that and plan accordingly.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't have Ethernet, Brandon. We just moved offices, so I've got a Wi-Fi issue here. Where did you guys lose me at?
I feel like you cut off right after you stopped talking. What did you?
I didn't stop talking for about 15 minutes.
Gotcha.
Can anybody help Clint out? Where did y'all? What's the last thing you guys heard?
You
Yeah,
asked
a question.
Caesar, go ahead.
Yeah, I think he said he didn't believe in luck.
Yep. So I don't believe in luck. I believe in strategy and execution, right? Like we might get lucky. The market might get better. The market might not get better, right? Good. So what? But if we're taking these strategic initiatives inside of the company, breaking them down into quarterly bite-sized chunks, then we can continue operational excellence. And so once we've outlined what we have to accomplish for the year, as far as working on the business, we're going to take a look and break it down and say, hey, what are we going to do in revenue for Q1? And so the tool that we use there is the KPI manufacturing line, right? And so this is a sheet that I'm going to show you guys how to use. It is inside of the Google Drive, but effectively what this is these are like dummy numbers in here just for show. But what you have to do is extrapolate the data from the previous quarter, right? So let's say in Q4, we had 1,250 leads. 1,000 of those were net leads. We had 250 appointments. We completed 200, which got us 30 contracts and 17 closings. Our average profit per deal is $30,000. These goal conversions over here, this is the state of your current business, right? And so for every lead that comes in is a qualified lead, a net lead. At 80% clip, 25% of the time we convert that into an appointment. 80% of the time we attend the appointment and get an offer. 15% of the time we get the contract. 55% of the time close, right? And so what you have to do is extrapolate that data from your CRM and take a hard look and say, hey, these are pretty standard metrics, conversions for a virtual model. But if you get some red flags in here where maybe your appointment completed to contract is 5%, that's work that needs to be done over the next quarter. And we want to take and highlight that. Like we have got to get that conversion metric better. But at the end of the day, based on these conversion metrics, if I want to get $500,000 in gross profit in Q1, that means that I have to get 3 contracts every single week and close 1. And then you turn and ask yourself, do I have the acquisition staff in order to accomplish that? Do I have the lead management staff to set 63 appointments per week? And do I have the marketing budget to generate 250 leads, 250 qualified leads every single week? These are weekly. These are monthly. This is going to be quarterly, right? So even from there, you can begin to ask good questions. And see, are you appropriately staffed? If the answer to that is yes, like we can get 3 contracts, that's a drop in the bucket. Well, maybe we jump this up to 850K, right? Then you got to get 4 contracts every single week and close 2. Maybe you want to do 1 million. And so you play with these numbers up and down to understand the current capacity of your business, the standard conversion metrics that you hold inside of each division, and then determine, do you have the capacity and the workforce staffing as well as the marketing budget in order to achieve that goal, right? And so you're taking a very calculated and dialed in approach to forecasting revenue instead of doing what I did early on and say, well, we'll probably do 500K this quarter. Let's just go make it happen. The funny thing is that a lot of times we do pull it off. But what happens at the end of the quarter when we do pull it off, right? We're exhausted. We did everything that we had to get that money packed in, that revenue packed in. We had no time for planning. We had no time for strategy. We had no time for working on the business. And we definitely didn't have any time to go out and find rock stars to bring inside of our organization to help us further our mission, our vision, our values, all because we set some bullshit number up here and we killed ourselves to go catch it, right? And if you killed yourself as an entrepreneur, think about the employees inside of your business. You got, 3 flat tires running down the highway right now. And so when you take this calculated approach, you can understand it's like, hey, maybe we don't need to try to kill ourselves and get 850. Maybe we need to do 650. And that's going to allow me to go out and hire some good people. I'm still going to net $200,000 as the operator, which is fine. It's going to give me enough to invest back into marketing. It's going to give me enough to invest back into human capital. We're not going to kill ourselves getting through this quarter. We know it's going to be a slow quarter, and so you take the summation of these down here, you would try to map out what are you doing in Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4, and then play with your data and see if you have the capacity. And every time a quarter bumps up, you get to ask the question then, how many acquisition managers should I need to add? How many disposition managers should I need to add? How does my title division look? Where is the capacity of my closing coordinators? It all gives you better bearings and a roadmap to what you're going to do week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter to realize the summation of your annual revenue goal. And it should shine a spotlight on areas within the business that need a big focus, right? If your appointment set to appointment attended percentage is less than 80%, you got some work there. You don't have a finely tuned machine. And so you're not going to be able to run an efficient and repeatably predictable revenue model until you have a good baseline of metrics. One thing that we've done inside of our organization is we've set a gold standard on all of these conversions, and it's unrealistic. It's going to be hard to hit, but we know and I think it looks something like 45, 95, 25, 85. When that happens, right, I have to that just jumped down from having to set 60 appointments per week to setting 9. I have to then attend 8 instead of 15. What all of that does is makes me leaner and more profitable and more dialed in. I can change one thing right here, and instead of closing 85% of my deals, close 45. And I want you to look at the numbers. It goes from me needing 19 leads a week to me needing 37, almost double. What does double the lead need mean? Double the marketing budget. What does double the marketing budget mean? Higher labor costs, less profitability.
Yep. And I'll say, none of this is possible to set accurate goals and forecasts without tracking. So I'm sure there's a lot of people here that are tracking all these metrics and all these conversions, but if you're not, you got to get it in gear and you got to start putting notice on how many leads you're getting, how many leads turn into an appointment, how many appointments turn into a contract. You've got to be tracking these conversions so you can work on getting better at those numbers and also seeing where the issues are, right? Our biggest issue in our company right now is our contract to close rate. It's just, we're very inefficient. We buy our homes virtually. And what we're doing is we're going to switch to in person because we believe that will affect our contract to close rate. We'll buy them better. We'll buy them deeper. We'll be more efficient and profitable as a company. And so that's our annual priority, is to get to 60% contract to close. And every single director in every department has annual priorities that align with that company annual priority. So even title division, they have annual priorities that they're working towards to help us reach that contract to close ratio. Acquisitions, disposition, everybody has commitments that they've got to make for the year for us to reach those goals. So if you're not tracking currently, you got to get visibility around what you're doing from a marketing perspective, from an acquisition perspective, disposition, across every single division.
Yeah. So step 1, build out your VTO, right? Setting, ensuring the core values, ensuring the core focus, 5-year, 3-year targets. Then we're going to jump down into a 1-year target and then into a quarterly target, and then determine what is the workforce planning that is needed to be done From there, we're going to come in and see how that bakes out quarter over quarter, taking into account what our quarterly goals are versus what our assumptions are, and then understanding the workforce that is needed in order to accomplish those goals.
So Ryan, I had a question.
Okay.
Hey, so these are the main high-level metrics that you're looking at. Obviously, as you get into each marketing channel, they're going to have their own individual KPIs, right?
Correct.
And so with this right here, you were looking at those high-level ones, and you mentioned something about like how many in-person are being closed versus how many virtual. Is that a metric you guys also like keep track of just to know what's working better?
Buddy, we track every metric known to man.
Right. So like how detailed are you guys getting beyond this is like, I guess that's all dependent on how big your company is and what you guys are doing.
I mean, from a really detailed perspective now, like that's very elementary. This is what ours looks like now.
Right.
If I got on here and tried to explain this to you guys, number one, I can't do it. Our operational genius Tyler has to do it. I know what it means. I know how to read it, but this is like when you're an $8 million company, you're going to need this, right? And if anybody on here is an $8 million company and needs this, we can meet offline. But today, this is what you need.
Okay.
Yep. And you know, just in talking with this and building this out, like, you know, we met as an executive team. We've met twice. We had our quarterly strategic meeting and we had a follow-up call this week. And then we have another follow-up call next week. And we're spending a ton of time on getting this all dialed in. So we know everybody has clear marching orders, clear plans on how to go execute and get on 8 million. Like, for instance, and I'll share something real quick, Ren, if you don't mind. So as you can see here, you know, we've got exactly what we need to do right here from a marketing spend. We know exactly how much we need to spend. We know exactly how many leads. We know exactly how many opportunities. We know how many contracts, how many sold deals, closed deals, revenue. And that, like, we've gone through all this exercise as a group, and we know exactly what we've got to accomplish to hit that 8.4 million revenue target. And then we've also got, you know, our annual priorities of what metrics are we working on to get better. You know, you can see all these metrics that we've came up with based off our current conversion ratios, and we're working on getting better in all those areas. So we know every single director in our division and all of our employees will know what we've got to accomplish as to reach our goal of 8.4 million.
And if someone does, it's like I haven't tracked these for my last, all of them at least. If I don't have like my standards from last quarter to judge the next quarter off, what would you suggest? Would you suggest going off of industry standards, or maybe just doing a whole quarter and tracking and see where that goes, and then from there project the next quarter?
Well, I would challenge you there. I mean, do you have a CRM?
Yeah, no, we have a lot of this tracked. I think what happened was one of the connector button clicks started messing up halfway through, and that the numbers are skewed. So it's kind of hard to get some of like the appointments, especially. It wasn't working at one point. So I'm just trying to think.
Yeah. So I think you got to take what you have, get the data that you do have, get it cleaned up, get it organized, and then begin tracking it. Because if we're just guessing, like I do so many of these, you know, like consultation calls where I'll do a one-off call and kind of go through this with people, and we get their numbers on this KPI manufacturing sheet. And I'll be like, hey man, I mean, what's your acquisition department looking like? How we doing? They're like, dude, we crush if we do anything good, we crush acquisitions. We put their numbers in this spreadsheet and they close 8% of the appointments they attend, you know? And so you gotta, part of maturity in business is going from gut feeling to data-driven decisions, removing and alleviating emotion, because what you think in actuality, a lot of time there's a lot of personal bias in there, and we have to eliminate that and arrive on data-driven decisions. So your number one priority should be data integrity. And then number two, getting it formatted in such a way where you can make educated decisions. Your gut got you here. It ain't going to get you there.
Yeah. Now this is perfect because I'm actually reading this right now and going through the VTO and everything right now. So I was going to ask you one more quick question before I know Andre has his hand raised. If you got your year projected for next year right now, and then you broke it down to each quarter, Now, say your Q1 doesn't go as planned and you make less than what you anticipated. Does that change the annual goal, or does that change the next quarter's goal and increase the
Well,
numbers?
yeah, sure. So it comes back to like setting good goals and not getting too aggressive in what can actually happen, right? And so if you look at your forecasting models and your KPI projections, like and you see, hey, we close 15%. I want to do, let's say in quarter one, I want to do 500K in revenue. And in order to, I'm currently converting contracts to close at, call it a 50% clip. And you see, well, we're going to get that to 65. That's false. You're not going to get that. I'm going to ask you, or what Tyler would ask us, show me how. And then if you can't show your work, just like in algebra class, it don't count, right? You don't have the systems and the processes baked in already in an operational perspective that is being executed now. And so it comes into taking hopium out of the pipe that you're smoking and putting real. Like what's really happening now, that's what I can forecast is going to happen in the next quarter. And we can hope to create betterment through refinement of the process, refining of the people, and refining of, our operation as a whole. So, and then, so to answer your question more directly is you have to make the determination, are you going to pack more in order to still hit this revenue goal? Are you okay coming up short? Right? Because if you have, let's just call it round numbers and say we're trying to hit 250 every quarter and you only do $150, you have to come in and make the decision, hey, can I increase to 350 and 350 in Q3 or Q2 and Q3 to make up the deficit? Or did we just miss forecast?
Yeah. That hopium pipe. I like that. No, I appreciate that. That's big help right there. Thank you.
Yeah. And so what I would encourage you to do though, is do not put added stress on your organization because you miss forecast.
Right. Gotcha.
Because saying that, hey, I did $150 this quarter, I got to make up a deficit and do 350 next quarter. I'm going to ask you what's different. And most of the time the answer is nothing. And then I'm going to ask you, so why do that? We just miss forecast. Let's learn from it and make a better forecast model moving forward.
Perfect. That answers it. Thank you.
Cool. Other questions?
Yeah,
How
I got
about-
a question on the
go ahead, Andy.
25. You say your profit margin on there, your goal is 25%. Is that an industry? Well, is that a stretch goal for you guys, or is that on average?
That's extremely conservative. And that's kind of,
Okay.
so, we're very blessed in our partnership, our little threesome that we have here, that Tyler, Clint and myself are very optimistic and we'll climb Mount Everest in a day. And Tyler, who is the brake pedal, he's like, no, you won't. What happens is Clint's going to die. Ren's going to get halfway, have to go to the hospital. And so that's a conservative model that we know that we can hit and still maintain margin while continuing to grow. We're also a scaling company. And when you're scaling and adding executive directors with 100K salaries and, adding additional research and development into new marketing channels, you have to sacrifice one thing: people, process, or three things: people, process, or profit. And at this point in our business, we choose to sacrifice a little bit of profit while still maintaining adequate net free cash flow in order to reach our goals.
Yeah, and I'll
my
say,
question. Sorry, my
I'll
question
say-
was.
go ahead, Andre.
Oh, sorry, Clint. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, that model would normally be, we would have a little bit more margin there, 30, 35%, but we have chosen as owners, me, Tyler, and Ren, to pay ourselves a pretty high salary. And that takes away from the net. So normally I would say we'd be more in the 30% range, but we just decided we wanted to pay ourselves high salaries, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you take out the owner comp, it's more like, I think it was 29.6.
No, it's actually like 34%.
Okay.
We're basically paying ourselves 320K salaries a piece. So that's three of those.
Was
You got
that for
$1 million
tax reasons to pay yourself in payroll rather than distributions? Or
I think it was just a personal choice. I think
Okay.
that you can do it however you want.
got it. And
You guys
so
use
the
like a-
reason that
my
I
bad.
led to that question was because based on this last quarter, we're on track to do $1 million in 2024, but our goal is 5. And what we're doing differently is we're adding 2 more home buying specialists in January. So we're gonna have a total of 3. And we set our goal at 20% profit margin, considering that we're trying to scale up faster. So I guess my goal was, is that a good goal to have 20% right now, considering that we're going to be spending a lot more money on people?
I think there's a couple things, right? So, you know, we're fortunate enough to where we can operate on a little bit thinner margins because we have cash reserves, right? If you don't have cash, like if I need $1 million, I
Right.
just call Clint and say, Clint, we missed this quarter, give me $1 million to continue to fund operations, and the money gets wired in, right? If you're not in that situation, then it's dangerous operating on margins in the 20%.
Okay.
And you have to look at and examine, why are my margins 20%? There's only so much pie to go around, and it could be due to an improper comp structure. You know, so think about this: is you got a pie that's 100%. You know, you got fixed expenses, variable expenses, commissions live inside of those. What I see often happen is people bake in like a 25% or 40% sales commission. They're paying the acquisition managers 20%. They're paying Dispo 15%. They're paying lead managers 5%. That's not going to end well. And especially as you begin to add on more people, your margins are getting eaten up. You know, you should be allocating about 25% to marketing every month. So there's only so many of those little percentages to go around. And then what happens when you miss revenue, which I guarantee you, everybody on this call, including us, there will be a month or 2 where you miss revenue. And if you run out of cash, you die. And if you're operating, and you know, one bad headwind from the market, you run out of cash, you die. And so it's very dangerous to build a company, especially in the early conception stages in which you're operating on such thin margins. Where you guys are now, Andre, I would take a dip, because I know, vaguely understand your model and your setup. It's hard to understand why you're building on 20% margins.
Yeah. And one thing too, you know, I don't think we've, you know, me and Ren never really talk about this, but you know, from an acquisitions, dispositions, and lead management perspective, we're trying to keep, you know, basically the people we have to pay on the deal, commissions, we're trying to keep that under 25% at all times, right? So like we pay our HBSs, they get 10% of the deal. Our dispositions get 7.5. The lead managers get 1.5. And then we're also going to have to factor in director pay for director of acquisitions, director of dispositions, director of lead manager. They're going to get a portion of the pie too. So we're trying to keep, like, you know, from a deal perspective, if we make 20K on a deal, the salespeople and the directors of those division are going to take, you know, say 5K on a 20K deal.
Yeah, I think our issue is our average assignment per deal is just too low, which we're working on increasing. You know, the last year.
That's the number one widget inside of a company is profit per deal, right? It's very hard to run an organization on a $12,000 profit per deal. Wouldn't recommend it at all. You got to get in the 20s.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
The higher the widget, and the widget being the average profit per deal, the higher the profitability of a company. I would say if you're in a market where you can't consistently at least get 15K per deal, you have to figure out get a better sales process or get a better market. Because if you're dealing in $50,000 and $75,000 housing stock, it's hard to consistently make 15 to 20K on a deal when that's the case. And you may be in Columbus, Georgia, in a situation where that's just the market that you're in. You're going to have to relook at your comp plans, because if you're in a lower demographic market like that, then, you know, you may be overpaying your people anyway.
Yeah, we're definitely overpaying on the dispo side. I know that for a fact. I just don't really know how to fix it right now based on the model we're working.
Yeah, you got to figure out how to, you know, use the power of and. It's something we talk about often, especially lately, the power of and. How do you fix that and not disrupt revenue and not kill culture, right? And that's the power of and. It's like, how do we go from virtual to fully in person as a company and not disrupt revenue? Like, it's a difficult thing, but it causes you to ask the question of how can we execute this in a different way where we don't mess up what we're currently doing. and that's what you got to think about, the power of AIM.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm just curious, does anyone on this call have this built out yet? Like, do you know how many leads you have to have? Do you know how many appointments you've got to attend? Do you know how many contracts you got to get to reach your revenue goal in 2024? Does anybody have that already built out?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
we do to the best of our ability, but we didn't have a full quarter of tracking. So I'm just going off of from October 1 to now, and then forecasting the next year.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, it's so important to get your historical data. Like, for instance, on our Salesforce, we can see our conversion percentages all time versus the last 90 days. Are we improving in those metrics from lead to opportunity, from opportunity to contract, or are we, digressing? And so it's important to track your all-time metrics, and then I think last 90 days is a good look as well.
Yeah,
Who
we
else?
want to be looking at things 30, 60, 90, 180, and then from an annual perspective as well. We have to see betterment in every division, in every conversion, quarter over quarter. Otherwise, we're spinning our wheels, and we have to ask, if we did not achieve betterment, was it due to improper workforce planning, or did we have bad processes? And it typically jumps back to, it's a process problem, not a people problem.
Nope. And thinking about how we set our goals last year and going into this year, like, we absolutely shit the bed in January and February. We had 200K combined revenue for those 2 months, and we're going to end up like 5.4 million. So if you think about that, like, we really did, the five plus million in 10 months versus 12, because we just shit the bed. But what we did is we adjusted, and like Ren was talking about, we didn't make rash decisions because our forecasts were, wrong. And what I'll tell you is, like, Tyler has mapped out every single month how many leads we're going to get, like each month forecasted, how many leads, opportunities, contracts, and it goes up, slowly over the year. But I'll tell you, a dialed in forecast is extremely helpful for you to figure out where you need to be, and what you need to achieve each month, and how like what you need to focus on from a conversion standpoint. So, like, for instance, like Landon, I think you acquire your deals off the MLS for the majority of the time, and y'all are just getting into direct to seller. Like, are you tracking how many offers you put out to get those deals? Are you, how many contracts actually end up closing your contract? Like, you got to be tracking all that stuff to be able to accurately forecast upcoming months and upcoming years.
Yeah, I mean, on the MLS side, we do have a tracker for our acquisition agents. Right now our goal is 120 flips in 2024. So 30 purchases a quarter, and we got to sell 30 as well. So we want to sell 120 deals in 2024 on the flip side. On the direct to seller side, I'm looking at the operations now. I don't handle the operations on that side, so I'm looking through the deal structure sheet, but it looks somewhat similar to your guys's. We just started marketing in Q3. We've done spent about $100,000 in marketing, and we've had about $355,000 in income. Between 3-4x. So about 3.5x, something like that. Between 3 and 4x for Q4 of this year. So going into next year, we got to dial in. I'm just looking at the sheets now. We got to dial in the data, so it looks a little bit more like your guys'. So I'm happy that we have access to that Google Drive sheet, because I'm gonna show everyone that and make adjustments this week on it.
Yeah, awesome, love it.
Yeah,
Jordan, you got a question?
As far as dealing with this last couple weeks, we've seen a dip in pretty much every metric that we track. And you said you don't want to make any knee-jerk reactions, and my reaction is like, okay, if our gross leads are coming in low, then we need to turn up the marketing dial a little bit for Q1. Would you say that that's a good idea, or is it just a state of the holidays that we're going through? Because this realistically, even though we were somewhat in business last year, we didn't track it to the level that we are now. And I don't want to make any rash decisions by like turning up the marketing dollars and doing all this if it's just this is the last 2 weeks of the year that I'm gonna, or last 3 weeks of the year that I'm gonna expect these things, and then be in a situation where like, hey, my team might not be able to handle it if I do turn up this dial. How do you guys handle that? And is there anything specifically that you do to offset a natural lull in the year?
Yeah. So I think that's a great question. I think there's ignorance to say things aren't going to slow down, right? We know that seasonality plays a big factor, especially from Thanksgiving until Christmas, right? Most of our metrics are down. But it is what it is, right? It is what it is. I don't think that it's that much of a knee-jerk reaction to observe that. But what I would do is you have to have childlike curiosity and continue to ask the question why until you solve the root of the problem. And if you can go all the way down the assembly line, hey, there wasn't a blip in our marketing. We didn't fat finger the mail piece to where we put a wrong phone number in. It's simply the fact that the marketing is hitting and people aren't responding due to seasonality. I think that that's very common this time of year. And we plan for it, right? We know that there's going to be a dip in December, which leads to a dip in January, which leads to a dip in February. But it doesn't mean that we're going to, make any rash decisions and go out and double marketing, because when you go out and double marketing, you tank your profitability and you tank your funnels, because if that marketing responds, there's a state of diminishing returns because you do not have the workforce to handle the double the volume, whether it's leads, opportunities, or whatever. So my recommendation is become super curious. Like if they're abnormal dips, like if you dip by 30%, that's probably pretty normal. If you dip by 80%, there's probably something else going on. I'll give you a great example of something that we call way too late. You guys heard Clint say we shit the bed at $100,000 in January and February last year. Well, the carriers put out a new whatever. They put out a new, we'll call it like a spam feature. 98% of our phone numbers were marked as spam the entire month. We called it the last week in December. Our contract goal last December was like to get 36 acquisitions. We got 13, which crushed us in January and crushed us in February. We didn't find that out. My acquisition people kept telling me, Rim, nobody's answering the phone. The mistake that I made is I should have gotten curious and listened to my people. Yeah, it's the holidays. Yeah, people were probably answering a little less, but I didn't put on that curiosity hat and start running through every single thing to determine, is there something else, an external force working against us outside of seasonality that would prevent answer rates? Well, 98% turns out we started looking because it was getting so dark towards the end of December. We had people, it was just not a good situation. And then boom, we went and actually looked and tried to diagnose a problem. And 98% of our phone numbers were spam. Of course, nobody was answering the phone. We fixed that. We rebounded, had a good contract acquisition January, February, and then we had a record-breaking month in March, which again lines up a little bit with seasonality. But now people were answering the phone, and had we not been super curious and found that issue, we could have rolled into January and February with still hitting 13 contract months.
Yeah. Yep. We went from, looking at like thinking about the contracts, like we were pretty low until March. Like we went and we hired some new reps early January. And then like we went from doing like 20 to 25 contracts in January and February to 50 in a month in March. And that was like where we really popped off. And it's because we figured out the issue with the phones. Our marketing got more dialed in. We had some reps start to get to performing, come in, and then it just popped off. And then now our goal pretty much every month, since then was about 50 contracts.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Anybody else have questions?
I would love to see that forecast sheet you were referring to. I'm actually in the middle of creating one now, but if I could just base mine off of yours, probably save me a lot of time.
I'm scared to give it to you, to be honest with you, Andre.
Which
Why is
one?
that?
The KPI forecasting sheet or the?
No, I have that. I use that already.
Our big one that Tyler
Yeah,
built
your
out.
big one.
I mean, like I could make a copy of it and put it in there, but it's like
Don't worry, man. I'm pretty good with Excel and that stuff. I won't kill myself with
Ren,
it, I promise.
Ren, you care if I make a copy of it and put it in the drive so they can just play around with it?
Buddy, they can have whatever they want.
Cool.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That is the advantage, and I'll tell you, of having someone extremely good with finance on your team. I'll tell you, we were talking with our fractional CFO the other day, and we were asking him. Ren asked him. He said, how do we stack up to these other companies you work with that are already $25 to $50 million companies? And he's like, well. He's like, you guys as owners, like you don't talk shit behind each other's back. I noticed that. Like you guys are, we'll bring up issues when issues occur, and you guys don't have any. I see a lot of issues between business owners talking crap behind each other's back. And he said the other thing is you got Tyler, who from a finance perspective is way ahead of these 25 and $50 million companies. And so in saying that, it's very important to have someone who's very good with finances on your team. Tyler has built this out, and it's, a different way than we've ever seen of how to approach forecasting. So if you don't have a finance nerd, get you a finance nerd like Tyler, if you can afford one.
If not, Andre said he's moonlighting. He's got you.
I wouldn't say that. I'm not a finance wizard. Pretty good with Excel though. I wonder if, based on the VTO, I built this, if you don't mind. I wonder if you guys have a similar thing to this. I'm wondering if I'm missing anything. I built this off of the scorecard that under traction. So, you have the finance, marketing, lead manager, acquisitions, dispo, and just seeing week by week. And then I'm wondering if you guys have a similar report to this that maybe you get a little bit more in the weeds of. Wondering if maybe I'm missing any metrics.
I would tell you from organizational scorecard, that's 2 in the weeds.
2 in the weeds? Okay.
2 in the weeds to run a weekly L10.
Got it. Okay.
That stuff should be tracked like in a CRM, like it's in the Salesforce for us, but we're not bringing that type of stuff up on an L10. That's too.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So you're just reviewing high level, like the number one metric for each department?
Yeah, one or 2 metrics for each department, and then if there is issues, if there's a red continuation, we handle that offline. It's not relative to everybody in the L10, but we also operate in probably a little bit different environment where we have 8 executives in the room and 3 owners, right? So we'll make sure that the topics discussed there that are relevant to everybody, and if it's like a COO, director of acquisitions issue, it's handled offline.
Yep,
that makes sense.
And what I'll say to that too is we're going to have a call on how to properly run an L10. We ran one probably 2 or 3 months ago, and we're going to run one again soon. So I would definitely recommend staying tuned for that call, because I think it's important to run them the correct way. I think it can be either your, biggest waste of time every week, or your most important 2 hours every week to move the company forward. And if you run it correctly, it can be a big lever to move your company forward.
We need to record one of ours as well and put it in the drive.
Yep. I'm dropping a link right now in the chat with this forecasting. Again, it's very complex. It's very high level. So take with it, what you want. I'm dropping it right now though.
And don't tell Tyler.
I gotta tell you, you briefly showed us on the leadership training, right? And that was like that sheet was one of the things in the back of my mind I really wanted. So thank you for that.
Cool. Well, I got to bounce, guys. Have a great day. I hope this was helpful. Let's go out and crush 2024.